growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. DrRasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, Dr. DrRasner here, and welcome back to The Lionhearted. By the way, it's timely to tell you that you can find out where I speak at rasnerinstitute.com. And you can also write to me at any time at my email, which is pretty easy. It's my name, DrRasner at AOL, no period, DR. I'm trying to shorten your road from wherever you're at to maximum success as a practicing dentist in our industry. Well, I want to say thank you, because I know there's just a plethora of everything for you to learn from today. Podcasts, courses, and whatnot. And obviously I just have immense respect for those of you that practice all week and take care of your family and still find the time to tune into something like me or somebody else. I don't know how it is for other educators. I'm sure it's similar, but for me personally, it's huge. Huge respect from me toward you, that you've got such passion that you're trying to, and you should do that you're pulling in from every available source you can. That being said, I had to say something to you before I get on to today's subject. And I want you to really remember this, because I don't know that I've ever said this. There's a difference between settling for mediocrity and also beating yourself up because you think you're not good enough. You need to remember that, okay? I'm not advocating that it's okay to be average. I'm not saying that a little bit. I'm also saying you shouldn't go on Facebook and look at other clinical posts or what other doctors are doing, clinicians are doing, and compare it to yourself. Because for one thing, you don't know how authentic it really is, whatever you're viewing and seeing. What you should do, in my opinion, is make a full commitment to CE and try to improve every day, every week, every year on your skill sets. And all the other things I share with you, not just, I've told you very clearly that just clinical skill, which is a cornerstone, is not enough. You got to have an office that is managed and performing with the same level of excellence that you have aspired to as a clinician. And if you do that, this guy talking to you refuses to believe that you won't find amazing success. I think it's also important that you keep perspective and balance in there somewhere. I'm off today. I could do 5 of these podcasts. I'm not going to. I'm going to go to the gym at some point. That's a little bit of balance in my life today. So keep that in mind, because I think it's dangerous in today's social media avalanche for my colleagues like you to feel bad about yourself because you see a number of amazing outcomes, and it's easy to self-deprecate. So this is what I want to talk about today, and maybe for the next podcast as well. At least that's my intention. I know I go off on tangents all the time. What I want to talk about is, again, going to come back to case acceptance. And that is the message you're putting out there and how that impacts a patient saying yes to you when they finally get to the office. Like, the process clearly is not just you ultimately walking into a room with a patient in the operatory chair, you looking at x-rays, looking at their mouth, and making a recommendation. If you think that's where yes begins and ends, you would be incorrect. It absolutely begins not even with the first phone call. It begins with the message that you're putting out there. And of course, what I'm talking about then is how you're branding yourself. So think about it for a minute. How are you branding? How are you marketing yourself? Well, that could be a great range. Maybe some of you don't market at all. I don't know how you could do that today and be successful. Hey, I wish it was that way, but it's not for me. I don't know how you could do that unless you bought into an amazing, robust, successful practice that doesn't, I can't even imagine that doesn't require marketing. So, are you marketing? There's a lot of options for you. Are you the practice to go to save money? Are you the Kmart of dentistry? I would think that would be a very unattractive path for my colleagues. You will get a lot of patients that way. I don't know that you'll get many patients interested in comprehensive care. And of course, then you'll spend your days putting out fires in patients' mouths for the next few years. And that can be an incredibly unfulfilling journey for you, which is not what these podcasts are about. What about hours and convenience? That's a hard one because I work Monday through Thursday, I would say 9 to 4:30. Don't be envious of that because I worked years and years on multiple nights, Fridays and Saturdays. And in the beginning, you have to do what you have to do to let people know that you exist. I mean, I've said it before, I'm sure, on these podcasts. It's your residency. It's that same thing medical students do when they graduate and they have to work 100 hours a week. Well, they're not doing it for self-fulfillment of their practice at that point. That's part of the requisites to come out and be a physician. So what's the difference to me? You have to go out there those first couple years and be willing to do numerous things from first of all, I think you do have to open whatever hours you have to do to attract that market. And I think you also have to work after hours to become involved in as many community activities as you possibly can to bond and integrate your brand into the community. Yeah, that's part of it. And to me, I'm telling you right now, it's not a lifetime thing. You don't have to do that once you've gotten yourself, your name and the practice image into the community at a high level. You can cut down on that type of necessary exposure. But I guess the question that I really started here is, what are you putting out there? Because think about it. At some point, somebody's going to pick up that phone and call your office for an appointment. And they're going to do it based on what you're putting out there. And we'll talk about in a second, like how to put it out there. But, it's not news on these podcasts. And I'm trying to save you time. I'm trying to maximize what I believe works. I'm profoundly believe what I'm telling you to be true. And that is putting out the trust and confidence thing. I want to, just as an aside, in the 90s, I wasn't talking about trust and confidence. I would put before and after photographs, or on the radio, I would have verbal testimonials of patients, which you have to design carefully along with your state board regulations. You can't say, you can't say I'm the best or have people even say that to you. So you have to monitor all those kind of parameters when you're on the radio and within your state. But in the 90s, that's what it was about, before and after, cosmetics, aesthetics. Today, for sure to me, it's putting out a subliminal message or an obvious message that you want the public to know they can trust you when they get to your office. So how do you do that? Well, to me, there's two ways that I use that have been incredibly successful for me. And so there's two components I want to talk about in this podcast. One is, what's the message you're putting out there that's driving people eventually to pick up the phone and call you? Okay? And then the second is, what happens after that? And I know I've covered parts of these before. You're hearing my view about it today, Sunday, mid-September 2019. So, I use radio, and I'm going to talk about that for a minute because I've been advocating you using radio for years, but I actually did some research into it, and it supports my belief that this is a good medium for you to use. And when I say radio, it's small station radio that you should be using. And I came up actually with a site for you today to use, and that would be called Radio Locator. Radio Locator. Google that. I've always told you to use your main person in your office to do the research. Radio Locator will find all the stations within a listening distance of your office wherever you are in the United States. And, it's important to me, and I can back this up with the hard media that you're going to use as well, meaning the newspaper medium that you're going to use to put out your message. So you got to put the message out there some way, and I'm telling you that I believe the way to do it is rural radio and small market newspapers. And when I say small market, they can be free. They can be pickups at the local food store that people get in your community. And to be honest with you, there's a power in that, or a smaller newspaper in a smaller town that makes it affordable. Because think about it for a minute. The people in your community that still use newspaper or listen locally are doing that because there's a connection between them and that community. So I live 50 minutes from Philadelphia. It would be a total mistake for me to use the Philadelphia Inquirer or use Philadelphia major radio shows, which, by the way, I tried. I've documented it on these podcasts before. I wasted a fortune of money. It's criminal how much money I spent. That was a horrible return on investment for me. But not the case rurally. So I have found stations, and there's really more than one I could use, that give an amazing return on investment for me. So, there's a lot of things that go into these dynamics. For example, it's not going to be news to you that what time should you market. If once you find a radio station, well, the drive times to work and from work are always the best. I'm telling you something, you're going to find it an amazing way to put the message out for yourself. And these are usually 30 to 60 second commercials. In my particular case, I'm on air 5 times a day, 5 days a week, sponsoring the weather. And my ad, which I'll gladly send it to you, or I'll have Beth send it to you, is, all about trust and confidence. It's my voice. Now listen, if you don't have I don't know that my voice is amazing. I don't think it is, but I think it's okay enough. If you have an okay enough voice, use your voice. If you don't, if you sound monotone, if you sound anything and you can't change that enough by how many ever retakes you got to do, then don't use your voice. Get somebody to do it for you. Maybe a staff member, because that's your moment. You have those 60 seconds. I find it very easy, and I think maybe I wouldn't have found it easy the first time I spoke on the air. So it's something you can improve upon, but it's an important part of this. So when to do it. You should also know that these ads can be negotiable. It's under $900 a month for me. That's remarkable, in my opinion, a remarkable fee. And listen, what type of station are you tuning into? Mine's an oldies station, which means I often get people in their late 50s, 60s, 70s that come into me because of the station I'm using. So I'm kind of talking right now about two different things to you. I'm talking about the importance of getting the message out that you want to get out before they ever get to you. And I'm talking to you about the mediums I use, which are now, radio. And again, small market newspapers are exactly the same thing because they'll cover local. It could be a Boy Scout event those little papers that cover things that a major paper would never cover. And so that's the news. And plus, the advertising in those newspapers is much more affordable. It's not even a comparison than it would be if you used a major city newspaper. So, important things. And again, the message to me, if I'm you, is trust and confidence. And, there's only so many. I try to keep these podcasts to 20 to 25 minutes. So, if you want specifics on that, just write to Beth or myself, and we'll send you literally an ad copy of what I said to get the message across. It's a colloquial, it's a conversation, as you might imagine, with me, just like I'm having with you, to my audience, my prospective audience in my county. This is the point. So it's not surprising to me that the people that call my office are patients that might have some level of distrust with past dental visits, especially in the last few years. Like, a lot of dentists are retiring, and patients know what to do. So sometimes they'll go to the dentist that bought the practice, who has a radically different philosophy. And I guess that's the subject for another podcast coming up. I mean, what I would do if I bought a practice today, and maybe I can get into that a little bit in this one or the next podcast. But I can tell you, I'd be conservative. I would be ultra conservative, and I'll have to define what that is. The last thing I would do is look to start replacing every missing tooth that exists in that patient. I literally have picked up families of new patients because they went to the new dentist that bought Dr. Joe's practice, and they were talking about an implant on number 30 that's been missing for 20 years. Not that you would be wrong clinically, but you are creating a business, man. You're creating a business, and you have to 3D think it out. You don't want to be there for the next 5 years. You want to be there for the next 25 plus years. So you have to gain something called trust. So with those people that call me up, I got to tell you also a very big third. I didn't say this before. So I said I said trust and confidence. So what I mean by that is this. Trust, let me just be blunt. I'm not going to rip them off. I'm not going to try to force something on them that they have no interest in. Confidence, that they know whatever they accept from me, if it's a filling or a denture or an implant case, that I project a confidence through radio, through my marketing, that this is the place for you to go, that I've had a lot of training. And there's lots of ways of saying that without just saying I've had a lot of training. And then, the third component to that would be the fear. That is a huge part of my marketing. And I combine those elements a lot when I'm speaking on the radio, which, by the way, I change that ad about every 3 months. So that's another reason you want to be locked into WMGK, the major rock station in Chicago, New York, Birmingham. I would go low profile stations. Maybe even look up talk stations, which, by the way, I had a talk show radio program, a live call-in show for 30 minutes for 7 years. So the thing that you don't know right now that I can't define for you totally is the wattage of the station and how far it goes. That show I just alluded to for you went to 3 states. It just so happened that the radio station was located almost within walking distance of my office. It was just a fortuitous coincidence. And it was an old station. And back then, when you buy stations, I guess, the wattage was greater. So that is important. You want to be at least reach people within, I would say, they go out 30 to 45 minutes from the location of your office. So there's a lot that goes into this. So the first question to ask yourself is, are you branding the right message? And it's not a hard thing for you to change. I don't really think that you need to go out and even hire an advertising agency, which I've done in my career, and they're not inexpensive. You can pretty much do this stuff on your own. You know, a lot of you are tied up right now in a number of social media advertising, which I think's okay. I don't really know what I think about it, quite honestly. A good example is if you went to my offices of Dr. Stephen L. Rasner on Facebook, I think you'll see something like 21,000 followers. And by the way, I acquired that organically over time with, sorry to be teasers, all these trailers that I'm giving you today, but I'll explain that at another podcast. But I think what's important for you to know is I'm not sure how important that is. Because it's not expensive and because it seems too scary not to do it, I continue to use Facebook as a marketing medium. But I think some of the younger dentists are putting too much energy into that. And I would put energy into what I just discussed in this broadcast. I would. I'd take the time and see what would be involved in me getting my own radio show or advertising on the radio and creating marketing along the subject matters that I've discussed again, trust, confidence, and oral sedation. So marketing to those people. And that is the complete package of what I'm looking for in patients in 2019 and going forward until I get messaging that there's something better I should do. So then the next step in this is you're going to call your office. Do you have a protocol in place for the new patient phone call? Is that just anybody can take that call? I've told you before that I have 18 different people that work for me. Clearly, any front desk member that works for me can screen a call, but it's not, I need that person on the other end of the phone, and so do you, to hear something different the moment that we answer that phone. And if Michelle, who's been with me for 39 years, cannot take that call, and often she can't, we have not found it ineffective to have the patient call back in 15 minutes and speak to her. Now, they're screening a little information there, and that's got to be, in a nutshell, I want whoever's answering that phone to put a smile on their face, and that's the vibe. I mean it. That sounds corny, but it's true. It's hard to sound nasty. It's hard to sound monotone if you have a smile on your face. The person that needs to take that call in your office is somebody that gets the importance of what's going on in that moment. Man, you need new patients to come into you. And you need new patients that are out of network to come to you, that they're going to still come to you because of what they've heard in your branding, and when they're going to take a chance on you because of how that initial phone call went. I've had the opportunity in my career to call a number of you and a number of my colleagues outside this podcast. And man, there's a tremendous difference. And it starts the same way people judge you. Do you know that there's studies done by a number of universities? Princeton comes to mind, Willis and Tavaro. The people make judgments about you in tenths of a second the first time they look at you. And that shouldn't come as a shock to you. We all do it. It's the same thing when you dial a business. That first connection can either tick you off or make you say, whoa, this feels different. And I personally have experienced that in a wide range just by calling my colleagues. So the person taking that call and taking that call all the way through to registering that patient as a new patient better not just be ordinary. And the best way for them to not be ordinary is to make sure that they understand the importance of this moment. Because you're not going to get a second moment if they're having a bad day or something else is on their mind besides the new patient experience that's starting right at that moment. Anyway, I'm going to stop at that today. I hope you hope this kind of redirects your energies between now and the end of the year. Do you have such a program in place? And on this very next podcast next week, I'm going to pick it up right from this moment and what needs to happen that is aside from me walking in the room, which I've given you in great detail. So thanks for tuning in to The Lionhearted. Hope you all are having a great year, a great week. Hope I'm bringing something to the table to make it better than it was in the past. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, it's Beth at the Rasner Institute, and I'm here to tell you about one of the most empowering courses in dentistry today. We offer a highly personalized, hands-on, live patient course here in our office in New Jersey. We're going to ask you what types of procedures you're hoping to see, and then we'll line those procedures up with the available caseload. You'll work in a team with another doctor, taking turns as doctor and assistant, and when you need help, we're there to guide you. But now we've got some new options. Now we're offering a limited number of observer-only spots. Maybe you're just not ready to make that hands-on move into live patients. Maybe watching will help you get ready to make that move into live patients. So come and join us as an observer. The second option is a single-day option. We've heard from a lot of people that maybe 2 days was too much and they couldn't get away. So now we're offering Friday only, Saturday only, or you can still come for both. And no matter which day you come, everybody's welcome to come to the Friday night dinner. It's a totally awesome and empowering experience that will leave you feeling like a gladiator.